everyone, welcome back to today's lecture. Today we are going to look at the GitHub overview part 1. In this lecture we are going to look at what is GitHub, how do you get started with GitHub, then we are going to look at the popular terminology used in GitHub such as fork, clone, merge and git. Then we are going to look at the repository, how do you create a repo in GitHub, what is repository are. We have already looked at what is branches in Git section. In this section we are going to take an overview of branches, and then we are going to look at how do you create branches directly onto the GitHub. Next, once that's done, we could look at what is Git commits, pull requests, issues, wikis, projects, packages and actions are. Similarly, then we are going to look at how does community collaboration work in GitHub. With this, let's get started. So now we have already known what is GitHub is. In the previous Git lecture, we already touched up some section about GitHub, what is GitHub is. So basically it's a platform where you could share code, and GitHub provides you unlimited storage to share code, and basically they recommend the file should be under 1 GB, because when you clone or share your code with, or someone forks your code, it's easily could be done in faster way. Or if it's greater than 1 GB, then you have to take premium plan for LTS section, that is if you have long files, then you need a premium plan. So with this we have known what does GitHub is. Now let's look at the definition of GitHub is. GitHub is a web-based platform for version control, that where you could share your code, update your code and collaborate with others. Similarly, you could collaborate with others, allowing multiple people to work on your projects. So you could use branching, then you have project boards, which allows people to work on the projects, other people, and to collaborate to your projects. Simultaneously, it uses Git, a distributed version. We know what does distribution means. Distribution version means every dev have their own copy. So dev 1 will have their own copy, dev 2 have their own copy, and this flow allows not to break your code changes, because once if someone false code is passed on, other codes won't be affected. So we have already known that it was developed by Linus to track changes. Similarly, what does version control do in your source code during software development lifecycle? So we have got the idea that GitHub, what is GitHub is. So let's look at this meme. So if you are sharing your files on or using AirDrop, it's not 99 IQ. Basically, if you share using Google Drive, it's still not 99 IQ. Or you use a private Discord share, it's not 99 IQ. You could use GitHub. Basically, it's meme that GitHub provides unlimited storage data, but to share codes. So now we have looked what is GitHub is. Now it's time to learn about how do you get started with GitHub. Now let's get started with GitHub. So let me open the new tab, github.com, and then we have already looked on how do you create your account in GitHub in the installation section. You just need to go to the sign up section of the GitHub page and just log in out the ID password. Once we have done, we could create a repository in GitHub. So how do you create a repository in GitHub? Before looking on to how do you create a repository, we should know what does repository means. A repository is basically a directory of your whole code. So suppose you are working on your file in some folder, you just create a folder and whole codes are inside those folder. Similarly, the repository is a directory where your whole source code is there. So if you want to look at the definition, what is repository is. So repository is a place to contain all your project files, and each file have revision history. All your code have history, so you could version track to specific history, what changes were implemented. You can discuss and manage your project work within the repository. It could be, so you could discuss this project repository with other people, so the other people could collaborate onto your repository, onto your source code. This could be private public repository based on your what you set the profile, the Git code profile first. So if you want this code to be private, so other no person could see, or no, the selected person could contribute onto, you could add those people onto your repository. If you want it to be public, so other people could see that what you are building, you could make it public. So repository can be public, which means anyone can view and contribute, or private, which means only specific people can view or contribute. Now we have got what is repository is. Let's see how do you create a repository. So here we click on repository, and this new file that was in previously, it creates a repository. Now once we have created a new repository, we need to give this a name. So the name should be descriptive name, that is your project about, so other people could get an idea what's the repository is for. So we are creating GitHub tutorial, so GitHub tutorial, and then we need to have the description. What does description mean? A description is the what is repository about, what does this code do, a simple short descriptive, so that other people could have an overview very fastly. Once they look onto your code, they could go to the description section. On the left sidebar there is a description section that could get the idea of what does this code do. So this is the tutorial for GitHub MasterClass section. So here we are creating a repository with description, a tutorial for GitHub Masterclass section, so anyone could know that this was a repository regarding a tutorial section. So once it's done, here we have two options, either public or private. So what does public means? Public means so anyone on the internet who wants to know what this code about, could view your code, could create a pull request to your code, and based on your reviewing, you could approve this code or decline this code while which is known as merge request. So now other thing is where you could make this private, so you could only allow certain people to see your code and make the commits onto your code. So we are going to make this public, and here is this is the option that should you initialize this repository with readme file. So once your GitHub section is created, it automatically takes the readme file and adds below to your repositories to show that what is this code about. So GitHub has internal structure that takes readme file and display it onto the front to show that what does the code about. So if I add the readme file, it's going to add some mock readme file you could change it with. So here it's saying so add git ignore file. So what is a git ignore file is? A git ignore file is to exclude the contents of the node modules. So what is modules are? And packages that are included when you install your code, such as Python packages, the node packages. These packages could be automatically installed when you call npm install. So we don't need this really in the code. So it just make your code big chunky code. So instead you need to trim down. So you could add those git ignore files that shouldn't be there onto your GitHub repository when you are doing the code. So this could be node modules, these could be folder files that you don't want to include onto. So for JS it could be Python packages, for Python it could be Python packages, then for Rust it could be the binary folders that shouldn't be included. So next is choose a license. So if you want your code to be licensed so other people could use it, so you could add a license. So for just a demo section we could add a license. So here are different types of license, that are Apache license, MIT license. Basically these two are popular license used in that provides other contribute to you other collaborators or other coders to use your code with a specific license that you want to be used in commercial or not. That's the thing for the license. So popularly MIT license and Apache license are used. You could read out all those license what license could be used for your project specifically. So for demo section, we could use MIT license. Let me then create a repository. So once the repository is created, if you don't add readme files here, you they add the coding section. So how you could commit your code directly onto it. So here you could see the license for the code. Here you could see this is the license that we have included. Then if we go directly back to our readme file, this is the description they are directly pasting it. Basically this here we could also see from readme section, and here all are our description what this code is about. So now once we have got an idea about repository, now let's move on to the next topic. Now let us look at what is branches is. So we in the get section we already know what is branches is. In simple terms, a branch is a pointer to a specific commit. Pointer to a specific commit. So if someone asks you what is branch is, you know that it is not a barn of a tree, it's a pointer to a specific commit. And branches don't take generally a lot of spaces because it's just a pointer to a specific commit. So there is already a lot of saying that you need to branch early and branch often. Branch early, branch often. Why? Because branching doesn't take any space. It's just a pointer to a specific commit. You just need to create branch and do your code changes on there instead of the main line of a code. So here are general thumb you need to remember those while working onto your code. So here's the mean that could sums up pretty nicely, that he's asking that which branch do you work on and what is naming convention do you use. So she said I directly work on the master branch. So if any field changes are pushed directly onto to the master, the whole product pipeline would fail and the whole catastrophic thing would happen. So it's better to create a branch. And similarly, we all are on shock that why she is working on the directly onto the master branch. So now let's look onto the directly definition what is branches is. So here a branch is a parallel version of repository. So you create a branch, it creates whole copy of your code, which is a parallel version of your code. It is contained within the repository. So any branch you make, it's already contained onto that repository. It doesn't stick around to whole lot of code, but does not affect the primary or master branch. So it doesn't affect because it's a pointer to another specific commit, and it does not change the main line of a code, allowing you to work freely without disrupting the live version. So it allows you to work freely. If some bad code is pushed, you could revive those code changes and basically push it with the correct version. And here is a master branch which was recently changed to main branch because of terminology in GitHub regarding to the slavery reference. The master was changed to the main branch. The default branch is most specific branch in most repository, often considered to be production ready. We already have looked onto the branching terminology in Git, that the terminology used in different branching naming conventions, that is UAT, QA, and all those branching naming conventions. We have already looked onto what is master branch and the main branches, and these are specific to be considered a production ready version, that is a stable release and all the pipeline are connected to it. So if something failure happens onto this branch, most likely the product going to be get failed. So that's why we need to create a separate branches. So we have got idea how to create branches. Now let's look how do we create these branches directly onto the repository. So here we are on the GitHub section. In Git we have looked on to how do you create branches by creating a command called GitHub branch and then the specific branch that we need to create. Now let's look on to how do you create these branches directly onto the GitHub. So in this, if you come to your main branch, and here you could see find or create a branch. Here we could create a branch. Suppose we create a branch UAT branch, and here we could create a UAT branch, and then the whole code will be created for your UAT branch. Basically, it's a commit to other specific branch in simple terms, and here is our other branch, and we could do any changes that we want, and then we could push directly onto the main branch or master branch. So we have main branch as a default branch. Now we have got the idea what is branches are. Now let's move on to the next section. Now it's time to learn about commits. We have already seen what are commits in Git section, that it is a snapshot of the code but in more optimized form, that it basically track what are the changes done. So, and we have also looked at the Git messages. It should be short and descriptive. So here's the particular definition of the Git commits are a commit or a revision in an individual change for a file set or full folder. It's like saving your work along with message description what have been changed. Now let's look how does commit look like. So suppose this is the file, and here I am dev. I have added some file dev1, added some files to it, and suppose I have added some changes. I have committed those changes, created a short message, added a new file, basically a short message, basically describing what the work have been done. And then once it have been done, it feels more organized because each commit tells what the code have been added or removed. And also you could go back to the previous version of your code if you don't like the new commit or some mistake have been done. You could move back to your previous commits. So by doing this, you could see how powerful this commit tool is in your making your code more organizable. So here you could also see the meme that making Git commits feeling more organized. So making more commits, instead of doing a whole code chunk commit, you break it down into small code commits and just make a message out of those. So other code contributor get an idea like what this code about, and it's more organized. So now we have got what our is commit is. Now let's look how you could do commit directly onto the GitHub. So suppose we are gonna add a new line. So here we could click on to the readme file, and here you could see that edit this file has a edit button. So first you could see that I am on the UAT branch. I'm not on the main branch. I'm not doing it on the master branch. If you do some changes, you should be on the other branch. So adding new line, and then we create a commit change, update readme, added a new line, short and sweet. You could also create an extended description in here in this GitHub online portal, and here asking, do you want to commit directly to UAT branch, or that you need to create a new branch for this commit and create a pull request. So for this commit, we will just directly commit onto this, and then the code is directly updated. Now we have got an idea how does commit look like. Basically, it's a snapshot of the code, and you could revert back, and it's a very powerful tool. And you should also commit often your code instead of chunking out the big code directly onto the repository. Now we have got an idea what is commit about. Now let's look at what is pull request is. Now it's time to look at what is pull request is. So in Git section, we know that pull request is a method of submitting your code onto the main branch or into the branch. So suppose here is our main line of code commits, and here is our head, and here we created some branch, we created some changes onto it, and now we need to submit it. So first we need to create a pull request, basically asking for code review, that could you just approve my MPR change. Once it's approved by the code maintainer, that is who you are code submitting to it, it's directly merged onto that branch. It could be main branch, it could be be UAT branch or a QA branch. Basically, now let's look at the definition of it. A pull request is a method of submitting contribution to a project. Once a pull request is submitted, the project maintainer can review the changes, discuss them, and even add a follow-up task or commits to this before changes are merged onto this branch. So before they add onto your branch onto the main that branch specific branch, they need a code review. What does code review means? Basically, before merging a pull request, a code review is done. Basically, checking if the code is secure to, or it means the standards of code quality standards are high, and discuss if there is any potential improvement in the code. They review our code. Once it's approved by the reviewer, the code is directly merged onto this. So here is a cat is asking for please merge my pull request, because if you do your code badly, there would be the code maintainer could ask you to change your code on make it high quality code standard. So now let's look at how do you create a pull request. So in the get branch section, we already look at that it was asking for to create a pull request for the UAT branch. Now here you could see, let's do it again. We are on the UAT branch. We now add one more line here by clicking on to edit this line, and we add one more line. This is third line, and now we commit this changes. Directly commit to UAT branch. Now we will create a pull request to main branch. So how do you create this? So now we are on to the UAT branch, and you could see the branch is 2 commits ahead that we have made of main. If you want to look at those commits, you could see that we have 2 commits ahead, updated readme.md, added new line, updated readme.md. So here our 2 line are have been added. Now it's asking you, comparing changes, to create a pull request to the main base branch, which is main branch from UAT branch, and here he is checking that we could directly merge directly to it because there is no code conflict. And if we need to discuss any changes, there is only one code contributor. Let's create a pull request, and here you could see we could add a description about the pull request. This is a tutorial regarding pull request. Now we have got an idea. This is how to create a pull request. Now it's time the code reviewer who is here. Basically, it would be not me. Basically, other code reviewer could review your code here, and they could add the comments. How they do the add the comment is basically they look onto your code, and they could add a comment onto your code like this is line 4, not third line, and they could ask you question, and they just put comment onto your code. Now based on this, you could leave a comment onto this code explaining what changes have been done, and once that done, you could just review those, approve those changes, and here you could finish your review, and the review is done. So here you could see merge pull request. It's okay to pull request directly to the main branch. Also, there's one more thing I want to tell you is you could also do this in Codespace. We have already touched a few things on previous lecture, but let's see how you could do this on Codespace. So GitHub provide us VS Code directly onto the browser for the coding. So here it's loading all the changes. Once it's done, here you could see that it's loading out. We are opening remote branches. So let us wait. Else better is to create a branch. This is 5th line. Okay, so preview 5th line, and here you could see the changes directly onto it. Here we could also commit to it and create a pull request to it. So here you could see all the branches and all the code. So now we could commit those changes. A code review message that have been given, this is line 3 or not. Here you could directly resolve from here, or you could directly do it from the GitHub web page and make a suggestion, or you could directly resolve it. So basically here we have added new line, we have committed those changes. Now just push these changes, added new line, we close this. Basically it will commit and we sync changes, and here you could directly make commit from here. Also now you could create a pull request. Here you could see the pull request, check out it from the main master, new line, and you here from here you could also merge resolve those changes, create merge commit. Here you could create merge this pull request. From here you could merge this pull request, or you could check out the main and do your changes and then pull request, accept those pull requests. Basically we are going to directly do the pull request, or you could create a new pull request directly from the Codespace. Basically I find it easy to do from the GitHub console or when making a pull request. Else if I have to do the commit or some coding changes, I do it directly onto the my Windows machine in the VS Code. So now I've got the idea of what is pull request is. So now we have got whole detail of what GitHub is about. In the next lecture we are gonna look at the more features that GitHub provided us, and with this I will see you on to the next lecture.